20, I believe.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Okay, we'll call workshop number 20 to order. And note that Jen Baney is here, Pete Marston is here, Tom DeGatti is here, Patty Frenzel's here, Rhonda Deal, Dick Crawford, Highway Superintendent, Town Engineer Bob Westfall, Attorney Chuck Malcolm, Recreation Director Joe Mentor, and Town Board Member Mike Madigan. Call the meeting to order. And the first item on the agenda is discussing advisory boards and public hearings in a virtual method.
Were we gonna squeeze something else in quick so we don't forget?
Oh, do you want to do that, the highway, clean up Grand Island first?
Yeah, I think that's just what we talked about a minute ago.
Okay, we can do that
Yeah,
first. I was checking an email, sorry.
No problem. Just so we don't forget at the end. Highway Superintendent Crawford brought up a great idea of getting on the calendar and then beginning to plan Clean Up Grand Island Community Initiative. This came out of a discussion he had with a member of the Lions Club. So with board permission, he'd like to bring this event and collaborate with us, Lions Club member. And also I reached out to the Chamber of Commerce and they're interested in partnering with us on this as well. It would be the morning of June 13th. And with your permission, we'll start working on promotional materials and coming up with a plan where we can execute this and do it well, no matter what phase or stage we're in of the New York State pause. Dick, do you want to add anything into that?
Yeah, I just want to give, really this idea came to me through a phone call I received about 3 weeks ago from a resident by the name of Debbie Rippolino Whalen. And she had been doing a lot of cleanup on East River Road at Spicer Creek. And I called the DEC because she had concerns over what she was finding. Give me one sec. My dog is not cooperating with me. Let me go on hold for a second and let him outside. Sorry.
No problem, Dick.
While we're on that topic though, I just want to ask Chuck, because we've had some discussions earlier today regarding public gatherings. The pause order indicates that we are absolutely prohibited from having any gathering of any size for any reason. So cleanup like this, Chuck, does that fly in the face of that order?
Yeah, I think it would be prohibited depending on what the timing is and, when you're thinking about having it. I mean, the current pause order was extended through the 28th of this month. So I think we just have to play it by ear and see what happens.
Right, they're talking about June 13th. Hopefully the pause order is lifted by then and we could proceed. So the question
Chuck,
becomes, do you want to
just
set
to
that date in
ask.
stone?
I just want to ask Chuck this quick. We talked about having it as restrictive as people just completing it as a family. I know a lot of people who are going out as a family and picking up garbage right now together to just do it on an organized day where they stay socially distant. I don't think a family unit that's quarantining together would necessarily be a
Jen,
gathering.
I would kind of agree because we'd thrown out the idea of doing like a virtual run, and that's not all at the
Right.
same time, but I think it's the same
Right.
type of thing where you're going out, you're doing it on your own time, but it's part of a sponsored event, I guess would be one way of putting it. But
It's very separate but together in a weird way.
I would agree with that because the language of the order is gathering, right? So if
Correct.
you're just talking about individuals on their own or groups that are, families aren't being brought together
Yes.
with other families are doing their own thing on their, separately, but yet it's part of an organized effort to everybody do the same thing at the same time. I think that's not a gathering. So I think as long as there's not some organized thing where people meet up or you pull people from different households together in any way, I think that it would probably pass muster.
I
Thank
guess
Thank you, Chuck.
my question, Chuck, and maybe we need to talk about this more in executive because there are some legal implications here, obviously. But I would think if it's outdoors, not indoors like at Tops or Wegmans or Walmart, et cetera, if we had very safe and clear guidelines for social distancing and everything else, I mean, they're going to be scattered. They're going to be outside. It's probably, hopefully going to be sunny by that time. It doesn't seem, I mean, common sense wise, I think we need to apply, in my opinion, I think we should be applying some common sense on this. Or is it because of liability or something like that? But it just seems like, you know, this goes beyond just the implications of this one event. It's whether it's the Memorial Day ceremony at DeGlopper Park, for instance. I mean, if they say they're going to have, let's say 12 people, hopefully it would be the supervisor would be included. Everyone's going to stay, let's say 12 feet apart. You know, masks, the works, they do the wreath laying, what have you. It just seems like common sense wise, 1 + 1 = 2. It can be done extremely safely with zero risk.
Well, I think, you know, Peter said this before, common sense has no place in the law.
So
The executive order is gatherings of any kind. It doesn't talk about under limited circumstances. It doesn't say if you gather smart. It doesn't say if you're outside. It doesn't say if the weather's nice. You know, the executive order that governs currently says no gatherings, non-essential gatherings of any kind for any reason, any number of people.
I think you've probably read the law as well, as far as Cuomo's ability to continue to extend this without legislative approval. I would question the legality and whether or not it truly is a mandate that we legally must follow, or if it's more guidance that he's giving us.
It's a legal mandate that you must follow. The legislature this year specifically changed the law to give Cuomo these specific powers. And he's issued an executive order under the statute, which is binding on local governments and everybody else. I mean, there's clear authority in the executive law for these types of directives related to the disaster emergency that he declared.
I mean, either way, we're looking at hopefully, somebody said June 13th, we pray we'll be in phase 1. I think we can find a way to.
Well, think about this, Tom, is that what we just talked about is not, I don't think that's a gathering, right? I mean, if
Exactly.
we're
I
having,
think we're okay.
like, let's sign up and everybody individually go pick up garbage in a certain area of the town and we just report back what we're doing and we're all being, you know, the separate together notion. I don't think that's a gathering. So I don't think you're violating the order.
Yeah.
Chuck,
Send a
to
picture of your
me-
family doing it.
So since
Chuck,
we're
it seems
talking
more like
about this, back on the Memorial Day, a good.
I'm not done talking
part-
about it yet.
Pardon me?
So Chuck, I'd like to really,
So-
I mean, in my opinion, this seems more like an initiative than it does really a sponsored event. And
Right.
I think if we look at it like that and we use, to Mike's point, common sense and people take the initiative, then I don't know that I see a problem with it, but I mean, I'm not you, so.
I mean, I would
I
think
think
we'd also.
that's exactly right.
To weigh in quickly, the whole premise, sorry about the dog, but the whole premise really is more for families to go get out with their family and to pick up garbage, not meet at the Grand Island Plaza with 50 people from
Right.
wherever to go out and pick up. It's the community-wide kind of go out within your neighborhoods, clean up your neighborhoods and get them looking good. It all started again because of what I saw and with the phone call that I got from this one lady who and other people contacted her and they all got out and they were cleaning up their areas. So that's the concept. But I think Tom DeGotti makes a point. We do have time. We don't need to start publicizing anything right now, other than that there's a general concept out there of having individual neighborhood families clean up their areas.
And I think the way that Pete described it is the way we should be describing it, as an initiative.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, talking about waiting to see what happens, I think you can do that now. I mean, I think it's lawful under the current pause order.
There's many people out walking right now that are doing just that, Chuck.
I would just add, Dick, if whoever's putting it together, whoever the contact person is, if they're gonna try and promote it as an initiative with social media presence, just make sure that they add in there, use masks and practice social distancing so that we're still promoting people to do things the right way.
Mhm.
When
And
we
it's
meet next
separate
week
things.
on it, anything we come up with or notes from the meeting, we'll make sure to disperse them to legal and the board. So everyone's on the same page. I know we don't want to spend long on this.
Just
We've already spent long on
back
this.
on the Memorial Day ceremony, a lot of that property is actually private property, not our property, not town property, I should say.
Exactly.
if
Mike,
they-
why don't we discuss this in executive session?
If you think that's required, yes.
I think it is.
Well, if you're going to ask me for my legal opinion, it would be an exemption from the open meetings law and it's attorney-client privilege communication, or I'd be giving you legal advice. That should be done in private.
Good.
Right.
Okay. Next, actually, the original item was the holding public hearings and advisory boards meetings in a virtual manner. We want to take the floor on this?
I guess I can get it rolling. I think we've all agreed that we're gonna, Zoom is what we have. Zoom is the technology we need to make use of. We want to get advisory boards up and running. We need to start having some of these public hearings. We're behind a lot of other municipalities when it comes to this stuff. But to do that, we need to have policies and procedures for how we're gonna have public comments and how these things are going to function. So I submitted that email on Monday that kind of laid out at least a few of the basic points that I thought we would need to address. And that was, the first and foremost was, aside from, okay, we're going to do this on Zoom, how are we going to get public commentary on public hearings, or how is the public going to submit commentary to planning boards? Or to advisory boards. So I think we've talked about this in the past. We are all in agreement that this is something we have to do, but we need to get pen to paper and get this stuff down so that we can send notice out for advisory boards, for public hearings, and really get the ball rolling on this stuff. So we can meet with the advisory boards and explain to them how this is going to work.
Tom,
Everybody,
if you, I'm okay in interest of time and clarity if we just want to walk through the areas that came in the email, because we seemed pretty agreeable to the ideas set forth in there.
yeah, so first and foremost was a mechanism for the public to submit written commentary. My proposal was we find a way for them to do that both electronically and through traditional means, whether snail mail or somebody dropping something off at town hall. But we need timelines, we need directive on that stuff. So
I support the idea of a town email address because it would be accessible, and then from there it would just be a direct forward to all of ours. But it would be very easy for residents, Tom, to remember that, to use not only now when there's things that they really want to comment on in high volume, but they could remember it a year from now. This is how I comment to the board. So I think it's a great idea.
and then how about, that's, in my opinion, the easy one if we can get people to send emails, but that's not always the case. Some people are going to want to snail mail stuff or drop stuff off at town hall. So we need to figure out what we want to do to get those comments essentially recorded, but distributed to the town board.
So
Like-
email, drop it off at, I think there should be a number of ways. Through Zoom, you can do the hand raise method. I don't know if we've tested that out yet or not, but I was in a meeting just the other day in Zoom where if someone wants to speak, you can actually queue them up and what have you.
We're going to get to that, but right now I'm just talking about if somebody wants to submit written comments beforehand because they
Right.
don't want to do that. And I agree. I think we should try and open it up to email. If somebody wants to drop off either in the mailbox or once town hall is open, if they want to drop just a piece of paper off, if they want to drop it in the mailbox, we need just procedures and we need timelines for this stuff we need to have a timeline so that we know we have everything that we can review before a public hearing.
I would agree.
With the emails, I think it's a little easier, especially I think we can set that up where if somebody had, if the email address was public comments at grandisland.newyork.us, I think links can set that up. So if somebody emailed it to that address, it would get forwarded to the town board, to the town
Yep.
clerk all at once.
Yeah.
So I think if we did like by noon, the business day before a public hearing or an advisory board meeting for that, that would give sufficient time. The other stuff is a little more tricky.
You said
particularly-
advisory board. The public really doesn't give input on advisory board, so we wouldn't do it for that. We do it for public hearings.
Public hearing.
Well, I mean, advisory boards,
So-
they're open meetings. you know?
Except for the ZBA has public hearing
Yeah.
on every one of their applications. So there will be a public participation component at a minimum of ZBA meetings. There are some hearings that the
Right.
planning board will hold, as you know, as we know from the
Hearings.
Project Olive matter. So there'll be a public hearing for a planning board at some point.
Yep.
So to follow Chuck and Tom, just to interject, I'm sorry, but our boards aren't all created equal, so to speak. The only boards really using public hearings are the ZBA. The rest of the meetings, the planning board can ask for it, but it's non-traditional. Normally, it's not a public inquiry meeting. People can come to it, they can watch it, they can spectate it, but they don't have any input. So, I mean, I think just we gotta understand that all the boards are wired a little different. They're all subject to open meeting laws, which is true, but not very many have public input.
Right. And I mean, most people aren't going to have comments. And even now you go to the website, you can find a way to email. You can email any of the advisory boards, no problem. If you have
Right.
something you want to give to them just because.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think it's important we make sure those emails are up to speed, because the last time I went through them, there was people that were off the planning board for 3-4 years still on it. I think we should probably meet with Links and make sure that they have the most recent list so everybody gets that information.
And now is the perfect time because Rhonda has been compiling an updated list of
Correct.
contact info for all the boards. So I think that's right. Because I know Tech Advisory Board, Jim Watts, the chair, he's a co-chair. He is not on that email address, which
Mhm.
at least he wasn't. I think we've got it resolved now, but still.
I do like the idea of having that each one of the advisory boards, even though public comment is not part of the process, but if someone is aware that there's a meeting and they want to at least give feedback before their meeting so that they have some input, even though it's not going to be addressed during the meeting, I do think in whatever communication we put out, I think putting that in there, so, but clearly making them understand that it's not part of those particular meetings unless, of course, it's a public hearing.
That's what I was thinking too, Mike. I mean, the more ways we can give the public to contact the town board or any of these advisory boards, the better.
Especially with these hot things
So-
coming up.
Yeah,
Like
So Mike,
Project Olive.
each chair of every board has the ability to allow a public comment if they want to, and that happens. So it could be a case by case basis thing.
I think
It could
through
also
Zoom,
be-
it's just going to be so challenging. I just don't know if that's going to be an easy thing to provide access to for the public.
It's not required, but
Right.
it happens.
I've been at several meetings before where there's been written correspondence giving to the chair or the board, and it just gets simply entered into the minutes. So you take a written correspondence or any type. Does that make sense? Chuck?
Yeah.
Yeah, traffic safety, same way. We receive correspondence in all those ways. It looks like Pete or Tom in here, you're suggesting maybe the clerk's office, if Patty, if you're on here, if you want to chime in on helping us out with some of that. If we're thinking about using that mailbox to receive things and then getting things to the right place.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking, I mean, the clerk's office gets the mail. They're the front line of people coming to the community. So if Patty, if you get something like that, we just need somebody to scan it and send it to the town board.
We did this once when we had the public hearing for the bike path, and at the time was set up, and I was not the receiver of it. I was CC'd on it. I believe at the time the deputy supervisor was the one who received everything, and then I received everything as a duplicate to make sure that there was no gaps in what was received. And I'm just looking at my screen right now, trying to figure out what that email address was. And I don't have it handy. I think that's Links removed it, but we did have a generic email created. So we
But
did.
I'm
have it.
more concerned about the stuff that comes in the mail and the stuff that people would drop off. Because getting the email stuff distributed to you and the town board is very easy.
Yes.
Right,
It
if one comes in,
paper
it
trail.
gets time stamped in and it
Yes.
can be distributed through scanning. No
Yep.
problem.
You know, so Chuck, I don't know if you had the opportunity to look at the email, but as far as timelines, you know, I don't think these are necessary, you know, we need them beforehand so that we can look them over. I don't
Yeah.
think that, I guess the best practice, in my opinion, would be we set a timeline, we set a deadline where if they want it, you know, considered before the meeting, it's due by this day. Otherwise,
Right.
we'll consider it, but it won't necessarily be at the time of the meeting because we-
Why do you need public comments in advance of the meeting? Because I thought the discussion was going to be that these hearings were going to be left open for a time afterwards. So, I mean, you're not going to be making any decisions the night of the public hearing, I don't think, right?
Well, I thought the purpose of leaving them open afterwards was to be able to respond for people to submit additional commentary based on what they saw.
Yeah.
First,
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is that, you know, you open it up ahead of time, say, hey, you know, submit any written comments you want from now until then. We're going to have the actual public hearing on such and such a day. You know, if you want to speak, you can let us know in advance too. Leave that whole thing open through, you know, from beginning to end.
well,
Listen to public comments during the hearing and then keep it open. And
one of
keep
my
it
suggestions, and this is something that we'll have to probably discuss a little bit, because at first my suggestion was, in the effort to be as transparent as possible, we could read some of the comments that we receive during the meeting, so everybody could see them, or we could publish them. Might be the better way to do it, because we might get 600 emails saying no to Project Olive, or, you know, we're trying to thread a needle, I guess, between.
I wouldn't read the public comments at the hearing.
How about
That's just
making them publicly
Yeah.
available?
Yeah, I would, I mean, if you want to have like a public comment folder on the website where everything that gets uploaded gets posted in PDF form, where everybody can look at all the comments that are submitted, that probably would be more efficient. But
Any
trust me, it
concerns
takes forever to read, like, and you're gonna
Yeah.
get missives submitted, which is good because you want good feedback. But to sit and read that on a Zoom call,
But
That'd be
it's
cool.
gonna chill the participation of those
well,
that
but
speak.
that's why I had suggested we put a word limit on anything that would be written, because we're going to limit the duration somebody would have to speak. So to the extent they were going to be written, they'd also be
But
subject. to
3
some-
minutes is a long time. So if they are going to read for 3 minutes, they write something for 3 minutes, it's a couple pages. That would probably not be workable.
I think if we can get them posted, that would be great too. I don't know.
See,
Check with Tech
my-
Advisory Board.
My
I
only
would look
concern
at it-
about posting would that chill and prevent certain people from feeling comfortable speaking up.
Yeah, I would look at it this way, that the purpose of all the public comment avenues are to get all the viewpoints of the members of the community to you in advance of making a decision. And so you can get them via email, you can get them at the meeting, whether it be on Zoom or on phone calls. You can get it after the meeting for a period of time so that everybody can kind of have a chance to digest what was said, the comments that were received prior, and you know, follow up on anything. And then after that, make a decision. But I wouldn't feel the need to take comments that you've gotten via email and read them during the public hearing component. I would just deem the public hearing component an additional avenue to get comments.
And Mike, I think
Sounds
there
good.
is some credibility to what you said, that people who don't want to speak publicly, so they're going to submit a written comment, may think twice before they submit a written comment if they know it's going to end up on the internet. So
It's subject to foil. So I mean, if someone really wanted to see what people said, it can be foiled. Not that I want to withhold information or not have transparency, but also I would like everybody to feel comfortable generally with submitting questions. So
Mike,
it's a double-edged sword.
We can put a disclaimer there before you submit that would be very manageable to do. Please know that if you're submitting in this fashion, this is,
Or we just don't post them, and Mike's right, because anybody can foil them.
that would be easier too.
Maybe we could say, hey, folks, on this public hearing, we received X number of written comments, and try and kind of give a summation of the scope of what they said. I mean,
Chuck kind of says their goal when someone's writing a comment to us is that we read it, consider it, process it. And if they want to do that in live format, it would have to be through the mechanism that we're providing. But it seems like we're covering our bases in terms of options.
It wouldn't hurt for us as a kind of a in-between measure, say, 42 people were for this project, 32 people were against it,
right,
and in written comments without going into any details.
right. We received X number of comments. We had this many in this, and this in the primary points of concern were X, Y, and Z or something like that.
Yeah. So
That
that
would
I
be
think,
easier to manage.
I would phrase it that way, Tom. I wouldn't try and box the comments into pro and against.
Right.
I would say, here are some issues that were raised that, that we're working on. And then just
Top
give
three
some
issues.
topic areas. I wouldn't say these, X number of people were for, X number of people were against.
right.
So Chuck, should we just say, here's how you can submit public comments and they're due by the time the public hearing's closed? Or
No, what I would say is that when you do the public notice, you have it spelled out in detail, that what date and time the hearing is, how it's accessible, both via the link, via the website, and also via the telephone. And then say, we're also accepting written comments as part of the record on this, and say they can be, submitted, and then give you can say hard copy to the town clerk, or you can email it. Here's the email address specifically for this, and say something like, written comments will continue to be accepted for X number of days after the public hearing. And so the public hearing closes, and you automatically have the timeline built into your notice as to when it's over. And then you take the matter up at the next meeting and you make your decision.
so in that circumstance,
If you feel like you're going to have enough information for some of these, at the hearing, and you want to make a decision as soon as the hearing is closed, then I would not extend a written comment period to go after that.
well, and I'm thinking too, especially if we're thinking some of these public hearings might go, if we're going to keep it open for more than one meeting, that would present a problem. It's okay, we have A, we have B, and we're still not going to close the public hearing for 5 days after, or the public hearing is going to be closed, but they still have 5 days to submit, and it puts us in, we're looking at 3 meeting dates before we could make a decision on anything. So that would be.
How many public hearings do we have really ready to go right now?
I think there were
11.
And
11.
11,
It lowered to 10.
but then we still have the Project Olive,
Yeah, minus the Project Olive one. That's obviously a
10.
special case.
10.
10 plus
10.
Project Olive.
Okay, so let's talk about the 10. I mean, there was some discussion or email that was sent that was indicating that there might be a preference on trying to get some experience before you tackle a massive public hearing, right? So what about picking a date that's not a regular board meeting to go through these 10 that you have, and figure the make sure there's enough time to get the word out and the notice out, but have one meeting that's public. It's a public hearing on everything, and then have the written comment period extended, and then you can take up each of these matters at your first meeting in June.
So I'm going to just throw out a thought that may contribute to this, but be another way in which to first test it before we do our first actual public hearing. And I do think there's a lot going on with Project Olive, and we have consultants and everything else working on it. What would everybody think about possibly having a combined meeting with the town board and all the different advisory boards? And then we use the hand raise method for Zoom. if anyone on any of the advisory boards wants to contribute to the discussion for things we want to consider as part of the consult, our consultants looking at, been reviewing the project, just throwing that as a thought. And that might be a way in which to do something similar to the, sorry, I gotta turn my radio.
Mike, I'll chime in right there. Technology actually allows us to handle through a webinar format the public hearings in a little bit more of an advanced way, which gets more data to Patty, allows us to function in a more uniform way than just with the hand raising. It would involve a little bit of registration. We want the majority of our people to be viewing it at the live stream meeting unless they're going to comment. So I can send you everybody again another link about if we use the webinar component for when we're having public hearings. That might work a little better than just the hand raise, because it's how do you pick which hand raise? How do we make sure everyone got a turn?
Yep. I'm just wondering, would we want to test it out? Because I do think there's a need for getting some advisory board, because of this shutdown, we've gotten essentially very little advisory board input on what's going on with the.
We have to
consultants.
meet with our advisory board heads, but that's a separate issue and a separate thing than what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, I just threw that out there.
Yeah,
Chuck,
it's important.
If we're not for it, that's okay.
the only,
I'm totally for it.
Okay.
yeah, I think
No, I
you're
mean,
right,
as
Mike.
part of developing our hearings process, that's all I was suggesting. To test it out.
What?
Chuck, maybe we could split the list in half or something and try and do half on an off date and.
Well, I mean, you guys, it was just a suggestion because you guys had it on one agenda in March.
I know.
And a lot of these are probably not going to have a lot of comments, just historically speaking. So you've had these 10 public hearings in the hopper now for 2 months. Just to kind of move this thing forward and test it out. I mean, if you want to break it up, I mean, that's your call, but you're going to have one meeting that's dedicated to a public hearing, probably 90% of which is not going to elicit a whole lot of comment. I would just bang them out and we'll test how this goes. And we'll figure out, we'll get the notice out. We'll make sure that works. We'll make sure the information's on the website. We'll make sure the email address is up and running to accept the comments. We test out how the phone component works and how everything works together, get through the 10 public hearings and then have the written comment last, an extra 5 days. And then the whole thing is going to be teed up for your action at your meeting on the first Monday in June when you have it. These things have been kind of sitting around for a while, and it might make sense to kill two birds with one stone by clearing the decks and also, testing out the process.
So it seems like, to contribute to what you're saying, that I think that makes sense. I think we just need to decide what our process is and say, is it the agenda and the notification has to go out to the public within at least 5 days before the meeting or 7 days before the meeting in order to get comments in?
Same legal
I guess we
requirement
gotta
we have
just-
for every public hearing.
Yeah, what is the time frame? Just to refresh
Well,
my-
on most of them, it's 5 days before.
Yeah,
and you
that's what I was
publish it in
thinking.
the dispatch.
But Mike, he's saying if we do it in between Monday's meeting and the first meeting in June, we can have that public hearing. We can leave the public comment period open and still be in a position to then move forward with stuff if we want to that first meeting in June.
Right.
And then we're not stuck trying to, because we're going to have, let's face it, once we get rolling again, we're going to have more public hearings to have. These 11 are all left over from February, more or less.
Yep.
Mike, also too, if we do end up committing then to having a meeting between now and June 1st, it'll kind of satisfy that, expression, the express concern you had about what this will look like. So why don't we think about scheduling something with our advisory boards and all of us?
Patty,
Yes.
looking at the agenda from April 6th, so this is old because I was just trying to find something that had the public hearings on it. It was the special use permit application for that, for the Whitehaven and Alvin rezoning that got split, right?
Okay.
We
Is
still
this
had to
one
refer that.
that
to
are-
the
is
planning
one of the
board.
ones that tabled?
Yeah, that one, we had to refer that to the planning board still.
Well, only one thing went to the planning board from the other night.
It was a special use permit, right?
Uh, I don't have it. I don't have it here. I can't get it while we're here on this call.
All right, well, we can figure that out. But
Yeah, but that was, yeah, and that had to go to the planning board, yes. It was Baywa,
yeah,
Baywa.
Very well.
But I would put every one that you're doing in one public notice, just so that for ease of reference for everybody, here's how we're doing it. The first matter is going to be called at whatever time, and then do the listing of the items that will be subject to the hearing, one right after the other, and just have one notice that gets published and
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Well, we can do that. And it looks like the only other things that would be holding these would be the seekers. Whatever seekers need to be done, because all the correspondence from the board, the planning board is all here on all of those.
Yeah, so that would be a matter to get prepared for the agenda packet for the June meeting. The hearings don't have to wait for the
Right.
seeker determination. So
Correct.
we would just
You're
want to make sure that all the documents that we need are prepared by staff and submitted to the agenda packet so that the board could take action in June.
Is there a day we want to do this then?
As far as scheduling for the hearing itself, did we say the first meeting in June?
Well, we want to have the first test public hearings before that.
Okay, just for one hearing.
So that would have said, well, for those 10, I think Chuck had suggested.
Oh,
Yeah, and I believe it has to be in the paper 5 days before. So if you're looking at getting the notice in the dispatch, I think they only publish on Wednesday, right?
Fridays.
right. We would have to have it in by Wednesday night, I believe is the cutoff, or is
So
it
we're
Tuesday?
looking at the tail end of the week of Memorial Day.
Is the cutoff.
We'd
Yeah.
have to have it to the dispatch by Tuesday, everything and ready to go for Tuesday to publish Friday, the 22nd. And then we can't have it Monday, the 25th, because it's Memorial Day. So the week of the 26th, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and court is not starting up until June.
I would say the ideal date would be the 28th.
Thursday, the 28th.
Yep.
I
Why is
would-
that, Chuck?
Because that's 5 days after publication. I don't have a date or anything.
So the publication is actually on Friday, the 8th, just so you're clear on that. When we say 5 days, it includes Saturday and Sunday, I would assume.
Yeah.
Just making sure you're not thinking Friday through,
No, it'd be going in the 22nd.
It'll be on, the publication will be on May 22nd.
Right.
Right.
And
I
the meeting
mean-
could be Thursday, the 28th.
Doing it that way, Chuck, if we do 5 days to leave it open for public commentary, we wouldn't be able to close it until after the first meeting in June then. Because the first meeting in June is.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it doesn't have to be 5 days after the hearing. So I'm just saying some amount of time. So you could
Okay.
say, so is your first meeting in June then June 1st?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Okay, so that's a little tight.
Yeah.
I mean, so you basically have all of Friday, all of Saturday, all of Sunday. And, maybe you could say that all the comments have to be in by noon on Monday.
or we schedule a meeting on the 4th, let's say, for the closeout of the hearings. I'd rather give a couple more days than that, but I wouldn't want to wait till the next meeting.
That's fine, Mike.
I kind of like the idea of doing 5 days, but yeah, it doesn't work well within this time frame. So Mike, I
Yeah.
would be okay with that.
Yeah.
5 business days.
Yeah. We're erring on the side of,
Of not holding anybody up to the extent
Yeah.
they get approved. We can't do it on the 1st. So if we schedule another meeting on the 4th, we can close them and approve or make a decision on
that sounds good.
those items.
Well, yeah, I mean, at that
Chuck has a
point,
look of concern.
I wasn't following what you were saying as far as like, so you wouldn't want to make a decision on the items or be able to on the 1st of June?
Well, we would, but I think we all would like to leave a little more time for people to submit public comments.
Okay,
So we would just hold the meeting on the 28th, or
We'll
sorry,
hold the meeting on the 28th, give everybody 5 days. schedule another meeting for June 4th
Thank you.
after it had closed. And that's a
Okay.
one-time deal, because after this, we won't be in a situation where we're having off-day meetings, but
Yes.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
because I think the intent of this, Chuck, is not just, well, we're exclusively virtual, but moving forward, these policies and procedures will be in effect for the foreseeable future until everybody's comfortable with going back to the way things were, if and when that ever occurs.
Right. Okay.
Anybody not do 528 and 6-4?
Where would we be?
True. Hey, by 528, that could be when we get to bust out the champagne for phase one, but
So Chuck, we spent a lot of time on how the town board's going to move forward with their public hearings. But we are surely bogged down with the ZBA. We have several projects sitting in front of our architecture review board that are just pretty much stuck in the mud. They cannot move until we get
Yeah.
things figured out. Hello? Am I
Yeah,
there?
you're a bit broken up, but we caught the tail.
Yeah, your internet's not
That's a
working
gist.
great, Pete.
Well, I'm out in the middle of a parking lot, so I can believe that.
I think Pete's wanting to kind of move us into some of those important
Hear me now?
advisory boards and getting that process going. Can you hear me, Pete? Is
That's
that
correct.
right?
Yeah, so the ZBA in particular, we have several projects sitting in front of the architecture review board that are simply stalled. They can't move forward till we get some sort of protocol in place for them. There's just a lot. Everything's stuck. We've been concentrating on how the town board's going to move forward their public hearings, but the ZBA's got probably twice as much as us.
Yeah, but
So-
the part of it is, Pete, whatever policies and procedures we develop here, I think should be applicable to them as well. Public hearing is a public hearing.
Yeah,
So-
the ZBA though traditionally meets one night, here's both sides and decides.
And we're
there
gonna
is
have to figure that out. But Jen,
Okay,
the one thing we need to address on this front, the public hearing front too, is what were you saying about the mechanism for in-person comments? We need, because that stuff, if there's gonna be a registration, that kind of stuff has to be part of our notice.
The publication. I think what we will do is, the best thing I could offer is to type up something and see what you all think.
Okay. And I would build in, because Chuck had made the last time we met, Chuck had the suggestion that we could do it two ways. One, we could have kind of a pre-registration, so to speak. And the other thing is, okay, we're on number one, local law intro 1. Can anybody on the phone or appearing virtually just let us know if you want to speak on this issue? We get a list together, and then we're going to need to
Yeah,
facilitate.
we will know that, and we will unmute them. We have the ability to make anyone a presenter, so to speak, where we mute and unmute. We remove up to a certain number of people. So the best thing I could say is for everybody to watch the video on what a webinar looks like and the frequently asked questions. And then I'll draft something that we could utilize to communicate. But to Pete's point and to what Mike was mentioning earlier, it seems like it's the natural transition into communication with our advisory board heads on all this. They really want to meet with us and talk with us to get caught up and to get a feel for what some of this might be.
So Mike, and I think I think next week sometime, we're getting our policies and procedures in place. We know what we're gonna do. So next week, we need to meet with all of the chairs. We need to tell them, hey, look, this is how we're gonna do things. And I think Pete, Mike, whoever, Conservation Advisory Board, they've all been missing out. We've got Project Olive hanging over us. The advisory boards want to have their say on that stuff. So I think, what we can do is talk to them about what they want to do. We can give them the opportunity to plan an off-day meeting, keeping in mind that they need to plan it, they need to tell us, and we need to publish those dates so that they're open to the public too.
Especially
So,
if it's on Project Olive, we need to make sure the public knows about it.
but and especially for Pete's point, I mean, the ZBA, you have contested issues, but those guys, they're going to need to meet once, hopefully before, and then they get on the regular schedule again just to get caught up. So,
Do you guys agree that we need to meet with them first? Before any of that, though, we need to have a meeting with them, so they're all on the same page and we're on the
As a
same
whole.
page with them.
Yep.
Chuck? Yeah, I do agree with that.
I mean, I was just gonna say that I think that this is, I mean, it might seem daunting or complicated, but you know, you have several members of the town board that are experts at this technology that I've noticed.
Where are they
And,
hiding?
well,
Yeah,
there's
we'll work
a
together on
couple. But I think, as long as you have an email for public comment ahead of time, and and the information is posted in the notice, I think it's going to work out relatively well with your advisory boards, because they're going to be on, and it might be a little clunky, but for the most part, I think it's going to go fairly smooth.
But I mean, and I just think we need to be clear with what they can do to have an off day meeting. Because they're gonna want to meet relative to Project Olive, relative to getting caught up, because
And it would basically, you mean a special meeting?
yeah, and we want them to have it, because frankly, I'm pretty sure everybody else, all the other board members, we want the input from those boards. So we want them to get together and meet and start discussing stuff and giving us recommendations.
72 hours notice and alerting the media and posting it on the clerk's bulletin board and the website. And Patty does that every time for the board special meetings. And so when she's going to be posting, she's going to be sending out that notice for the 2 special meetings that we're going to have, that we're going to include the hearings and the decision. We should just find out when the other boards want to do it all at once.
Yeah, because, and that's the thing, is we just need them to give us dates, because we need to post. We'll take care of getting it posted, but they need to be aware that it can't be hey, we're going to meet next week. They got to give us notice so we can get the public.
Or tomorrow. And
I
it's-
think
and knowing what the agenda is.
At our group meeting with them, when all the chairs are there, we can outline best practice, kind of like we had to do, Dick and I, with Board of Trustees, because they had to meet, they're a different sort of situation. We did a practice meeting with no content, and then we go into the other one. So just outlining for them, because this is so new, you're going to do a practice meeting where you talk about nothing, because you have a quorum here. Just make sure everybody learns how to sign on. That's a separate day. But I think if we all agree and can flesh that stuff out and go over it in the group meeting, we'll be okay.
Yeah, and from a logistics standpoint, I think we've kind of discussed this, but the setting up of these meetings for the most part is going to fall on us, Parks and Rec Advisory Board. I'll take care of getting out the meeting, setting up the Zoom. Mike, you've got CAB, and Jen and I are happy to work with you to set that up.
Yep.
Pete, EDAB, you've got that. We'll help you set it up. Jen, she's got traffic safety in hers, but it'll fall on us to be the facility.
Architectural review.
But
Facilitator and going live are the 2 things. I'm sure Pete and I, and probably a couple others, maybe anyone else that needs to learn that process.
And Mike, the nice part is we can set it up so that, like Jen or myself, so that there's more than one host, so that we can help with that stuff while you guys are getting comfortable with it. So
Yeah, so you're not worried the first time, like if one of our internets go down, like when mine went down once, Tom was right there to pick it up. So we're not going to leave anybody hanging that first time.
Great.
Tom and I didn't for ourselves. So
and I think, this is going to fill up the YouTube page, which is good, because all this stuff, like Mike said, and I don't know if that was clear in our discussions, but all of these advisory board meetings are going to be done the same manner as this meeting and the town board meetings. They'll be live for everybody to see. And I think, we're not there yet, obviously, but once we open up, we need to discuss making sure that continues. We can get, they're not going to, at some point, we'll be back in the same room, but it'll be nice to have records of all the meetings too. So
A question I have for Chuck. I recall early on, there was a discussion that transcripts would have to be created for each one of these meetings. Is that not the case?
It is the case.
Ooh.
we're good.
But
Oh,
in
we have
any
a
event,
process for that?
here's the deal. It says later transcribed. Later could mean tomorrow, or it could mean when someone asks for it.
upon request. And Mike, with this, Zoom and YouTube can kind of at least get us a rough transcript with a click of a button. So
Oh,
It's already there for all those meetings, auto-generated. It's pretty
oh,
cool.
so we're okay.
Yeah,
mean,
we
we
did
can-
one for library, and Bridget just fixed it up. It made it a lot quicker from scratch. But John Whitney mentioned, maybe a month ago, if we have to batch these and pay for them at the end, that's fine too, if that's what we end up having to do.
Yep.
So Chuck, I'm a little bit concerned that not all of our advisory board people, especially the ZBA, and I know for a fact that some of the planning people do not have the technology to join a Zoom meeting. They don't do it. I get it. I grew up in the 70s. Personally, if I wanted to call into a public, if I was going to participate in a public hearing, I would get up and speak, or I would phone in. I would not go through this whole Zoom scenario.
Pete,
That being said, you know, how do we get them people involved if they can't?
they can call in. With every Zoom
Okay.
conference, there's a call-in number that's attached. You call into a number, you punch in a code for the meeting, and they can appear just telephonically. They don't need to be on camera.
And they
Okay.
should have, they will have, the packets are already mailed to their homes anyway in advance of the
Correct.
meeting. So they'll have the materials to look at.
So we can give them a phone in number so they can participate via audio.
Mhm.
Yep. If you're in your email with the invite to this one, it automatically generates. There's a phone and number for everyone. Judy
Right.
Tofalski, when she
Mhm.
joins us, is generally called in because her computer doesn't have audio or video,
Okay.
so had to do that.
And
Okay.
Pete, if there's some unique situations where maybe someone who's a head or chair doesn't have this technology but really wants to utilize it, we're coming up with some creative solutions for a bar right now. So if we need to have a station for a chair or something for a certain night at town hall or day at town hall, we would work to make that technology accessible and available if it's unique.
I'm going to say, you know, we've all worked on what we need to work on, but I'm most concerned about the ZBA. They are a separate entity from the town government and board. I don't know that they have all the technology, and I'm a little concerned because then now all of a sudden the town board's facilitating their meetings. That might not be a good look.
We can work with Rhonda Tolner to have her, you know, we can delegate her permissions to get this set up. And I mean, unfortunately, the reality of it is we don't have a choice, but either do them virtually or don't do them at all.
Correct.
If
Correct.
we,
I
you know,
understand.
Rhonda, we had set her up. Jen and I tried to get her set up with the,
Mevo,
Mevo
Mevo.
to record the meetings, the last meeting they had before this happened. But we can, you know, and again, when I say facilitate, all I mean is use Zoom to create the meeting and be the host. So click a button, get it set up. We don't have to say a word. We just offering to set it up instead of, like you said, relying on, I mean, Rhonda, she's likely going to be doing it from home. Who knows if she has the, you know, she doesn't necessarily need to use her resources when we have them, but.
Okay.
And I think Mike, and going back to everybody, I think that the technology issue is a very important part of this too, because we need to make sure that the chairs get this out to their people and everybody knows what's going to happen, how they can and can't participate, because we need to also make sure they have quorums when we get this rolling too, because we want
Right.
them to have meaningful meetings.
Yep.
Mhm.
Do you have a date in mind, anyone, for when you'd want to meet with department heads?
I mean, advisory board chairs, you mean?
I'm sorry, yes, advisory board chairs.
Anytime next week. I would suggest sooner rather than later.
I would suggest
Tom, let's get
evening
it moving.
versus day.
You would or would not, Pete?
I would, because
Yeah.
everybody works for a living.
You would
Well,
like it,
some
when
people work for a
would you like
living.
it?
Is there a chance we
time-
might want to have 2 slots just in case of scheduling issues?
If you want, but I mean, most advisory boards meet in the evening.
Good point. Yeah,
and
they're free in
that's
the evening.
Most people's availability.
I mean, honestly, I don't know what everybody's schedule is. I would love to have it next Tuesday, the 19th, so we can get them up and rolling as quickly as possible. I think Tech Advisory Board is Thursday. Mike doesn't, CAB meets at the end of the month, right?
Well, I think we're talking just meeting with the heads all at one
Yes.
night.
Right, but I'm saying if we get this set up, we can get them rolling. There are
Yeah.
going to be some who could theoretically,
Yep.
once we get them permission,
On the meeting date schedule.
Could we
Yeah,
do
take it
the
out.
20th instead?
that's fine with me.
Well, the other thing too, you gotta remember,
Post this for how long though?
Well, we would only have to post how to connect. The regular scheduled meetings have been posted.
It's a town board meeting.
No, the meeting that we're talking about scheduling right now, it sounds like we're all gonna participate in.
Yes, so
Well-
that becomes a town board meeting.
72 hours, so Wednesday would be fine.
Yeah, we're fine.
I don't really think we should hold them to their standard meeting dates either. If there's some
Right.
things that need to be caught up on. We
Oh,
should,
absolutely.
we should
But
have
I'm
some,
just saying, Pete, this would give them
Yeah.
the opportunity to do it if they want or to not if they can't.
I agree. And we just need to explain to them that all these need to be publicly posted if they're, and
Ye-
they need to be to stream to YouTube, and then they are considered meetings,
Right.
Yeah.
The 20th, anybody have a problem with that or John?
What time?
I would suggest evening too, just because
Yeah.
those guys generally
7 o'clock?
meet 7 o'clock, but 6,
Either 6 or 7? It's up to you guys.
either are fine with me.
7 till 7 in the morning is fine with me, whatever.
So 7 o'clock.
I can work on confirming the email addresses with Rhonda and getting that set up.
Okay.
Please explain to them also that they cannot come in via Zoom, that they can call in via phone. They all need to be part of the discussion.
Yeah,
Yes.
Rhonda, when they get that together, if Rhonda gets the email address for all the chairs, Jen or I can set up the meeting. When we send the invite, it'll have the call-in information and we can make that
Okay.
clear. We can all call, once we send that meeting invite out,
Mhm.
all of the liaisons can call the respective chairs and have a conversation with them about
It's
it.
just what I was gonna say too. And this will also be a good time to get perhaps Rhonda on board with sending these things, because I know she wants to be trained. So it'd be nice coming from the supervisor's office. Looks professional.
I would strongly recommend that Rhonda Tollner handles the ZBA end of it. Just so there's a separation, the town board there.
I agree.
Let her
So-
work that
yeah.
piece.
So don't
Let
include the
her
ZBA.
understand the process and all.
The
Well,
board
I-
wants
I
ZBA
think
not
we
in on
need
that
to,
one.
But I also think, I think that's gonna be the hardest one, because they do public hearings regularly. That's not just put on YouTube and it's a public meeting. They do public hearings. They need to understand exactly how this works for the time being, so we can start catching up on all these things that are stalled. We won't fire up our local economy unless we fire up all these projects, so.
Yeah.
Do we want the chair of the ZBA there though for this initial discussion and training?
I would think so.
Great. Okay.
I would think
And
so,
then-
but I think Rhonda Tollner should also be included.
Sounds good. And if we have to invest more time working with her so she can be more empowered to do this more independently, it would only go in our favor, it sounds like, overall for
Mhm.
what's best practice. So let's do that. Okay.
Yeah.
What's left, Supervisor?
That's all I had. Let's get it moving.
Yeah,
Are we meeting in executive just to have that discussion we talked about earlier?
Well, we would need Chuck to send us an invite then, or we'll have to do it another time.
I can do that if the board wants to do that now.
I mean, we could either do that discussion today or Monday night, where maybe something will change, hopefully, in terms of the lockdown. Who knows?
It's
Those
on,
orders until the 28th.
Yeah, let's do it Monday.
and it is, Mike, the Memorial Day thing is covered under the summer rec programming so it's on the workshop agenda for Monday already.
So let's do it then. Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Patty, you got all those dates?
What's that?
Send out invites.
I have just that there's going to be a workshop May 28th at 7 PM. That's going to include the advisory board chairs and the town board. in
Man, that one's,
preparation. And then are we still doing the 28th?
May 20th is what you just said.
Right, but the 28th,
Yes.
you didn't set a time for those.
The 28th is going to be public hearings. Do we want to do it at 8 o'clock as we normally would with the town board or?
Do it at 8 then, do it earlier, like
No, I'm
6.
asking,
I would do it earlier.
Yeah, we've
But
got a
probably
lot to
not
get
6
through.
because some people are working, not a lot of people, but in New York State, but I would say 7 rather than 8, just because,
7.
especially,
Okay, Mike, I like it.
I like it.
Sounds good.
7 on 6/4 as well.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll work with Chuck on maybe the public hearing notice on that.
Yep.
Ken, you and I can maybe try and figure this out, but if we can get one meeting code, because if people are going to be calling into, you know what I mean? Like if whatever the mechanism is for people to participate in the Zoom meeting, to give public comment would need to be published with Patty's thing. So whether it's the phone number or this, right, Chuck?
Yeah, we got to get that email address.
But we're okay on time and we have the weekend to draft some things. I know what tasks are before us. We just have to
Well,
do it.
yeah, you're talking about the Zoom call-in information for the notice,
Yeah.
as
Wouldn't we
well
need-
as the email address getting set up.
Yep.
Yeah, we have to figure that out. So, Zoom will allow you to like schedule a meeting and then it generates one at that time, right? Or do you guys have your own separate?
We
number?
usually, it generates. We
It
actually-
generates one, or we have our own meeting code, but it's probably better to use generated ones. So it would involve us creating all these meetings, which is not a problem.
Well, right now we only need, we need 2, right?
Right.
For ours.
For the
Yes.
public hearing.
Yeah. So, if you want to get those on the calendar, and then you can send me, and everybody, like all the board members, an invite, it'll be in that thing and I can take it from there.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
then just let me know when the comment email is live and what it is.
Perfect.
Okay.
We didn't
So
So-
check.
just do public
on that.
comments at Grand Island, or do we want something fancy?
There was already one created. We can just revise that one. It's the same one we used for the bike path. It's
What
just
was
been
it called?
removed. I don't remember. I can't find it because I don't have it on here
We can,
anymore.
we'll check
It
with
was
Kevin.
removed. That's why you can't find it.
I would say public comments at,
Seems,
that-
It's
Right.
something really simple like that. Yeah. It
So-
was.
Link set that up.
So Chuck, just to make sure that the town board isn't setting up the advisory boards to fly in the face of the state of emergency, are we going to, after this meeting, point in the direction, going to start to let them meet on their respective nights? Or do we have to change our state of emergency order, or how does that look?
it's all governed under Cuomo's, and he extended it out already till June 6th. I
Right.
would anticipate it being extended further.
in
Yeah, but I'm
Chuck,
talking
it was
about us.
John's state of emergency order.
Correct.
I
On the
see.
advisory boards.
Yes, so, John's, you just issued one on, when
I
was
just
the last
issued
one?
one today.
Today? Okay,
Today, so we are.
Yeah,
so it's
through-
good
Sunday,
for
Monday,
5
Tuesday.
days, so the
Right.
next one, we will
Pull that
amend.
out. Yep.
Right.
Men, so
That's-
this could be, this could happen.
Yeah, I would say they can start meeting after we meet with them on 5/28 or 5/20.
So I
And
guess,
then we have to rescind that. We can rescind it. That's
No,
You
specific.
just,
That's
you just
more-
won't renew it in your next one.
Yeah,
Right,
that's more than
we'll
5 days.
Drop that part out of the
Out of the renewal.
furtherance of the continuation of orders.
Yep.
so I
And
guess
just,
as a general statement, I'll say that we're going to try to move forth in our June meetings.
Yep.
Are we there?
yep, you were broken up a
Does
little
that
bit.
make sense?
Yep,
Well,
Yeah,
we
so,
need,
so in
Bob,
general,
we need to get
June.
we need to get the agenda packets going, right? We need to, if we're gonna have the June meetings.
yeah. For planning and architecture review and those guys, yeah.
well, I mean, probably for everybody.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but like Parks and Rec doesn't really have much of a lot of stuff. There are some that don't have packets, but for the ones that do,
Agendas, minimally an agenda
But
that covers what will be covered in that meeting and
Correct.
nothing. We really need to try and adhere. That'll be part of what we discuss on the 20th. We need to try and adhere to those agendas.
Yep. So Jen too, we should include all the department heads on that too, because they often,
Yeah, I've got, just from the discussion here, I've got a list going of things
well, call
that
me
I
and
thought of.
feel
while
free
we're
to
doing
delegate
this-
some of those tasks to me.
Yeah, but it's gonna be okay. And I'm gonna steal from a couple other towns and how they're doing things as well. To see if that would be easier as well, but it'll be a busy weekend.
Yep.
All right, everybody good?
Yeah,
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Jen Baney, second by Mike Madigan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Goodbye. Good
Bye,
night.
everybody. Have a good
All
weekend.
right, everybody have a great weekend.
See ya.